much. Senator Chisholm?
I'm happy for Senator Cox to start.
Senator Cox.
Thank you. My first questions are for, in relation to GM cotton and the Fitzroy River catchment. How long has CSIRO been working on the developing of GM cotton?
Senator, I think that's one for Kirsten Rose, actually.
Sorry, excuse me. Kirsten Rose, Executive Director, Future Industries. Senator, I don't have that data at hand. If you can give me a little bit more detail about what you're looking for, perhaps I can take it on notice.
How long have they been working on the development of genetically modified cotton? That was the question.
Right.
Senator, sorry, I didn't realise you were talking about GMO.
Yeah.
I think we can answer our breeding programs for cotton, which we've been doing cotton breeding for probably more than 50 years. But I'm not aware of, because our breeding is, we breed different strains of cotton, but I'm not sure that is what you're asking. You're asking about genetic modification, which...
Has there been a time frame that you've been working on it? Like, is there...
I'm not able to answer. I'm not aware of that, Senator, so I have to take that on notice. But I probably would know if it was significant.
All right. And how many variants of GM cotton are there that have been developed by CSIRO?
Senator, if you're going to ask me about genetic modification, again, I'll have to take it on notice. But there are many varieties of cotton that we breed, and wheat, and many crops, and basically we breed them to reduce the impact of drought. Or, for example, wheat today has a 30% higher yield than it would otherwise due to the effects of climate change because we bred new strains, but that wheat is not genetically modified, it's genetically bred, if that makes sense. So I just want to be clear, you're talking about actually changing the genetics of the material through breeding. You're talking about interfering with the genetics. You're talking about changing them through some mechanism other than breeding. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I'd have to take those questions on notice.
Yeah, if you could provide that, that'd be great. And also, if CSIRO actually gets a royalty from GM cotton, that would be great if you're able to give me on that on notice as well. My next questions are in relation to the Gas Industry Social and Environmental Research Alliance.
That's a GISERA, Senator, and Dr. Mayfield is in the best position to answer that.
So, Senator, Peter Mayfield, Executive Director for Environment, Energy and Resources. Happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to note that in relation to the progress report on groundwater baseline study for the Canning Basin, can you tell me which oil and gas companies are currently part of the alliance?
This is for GISERA you're asking for?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we have Origin, Santos, Queensland Gas Corporation, and APIR are there. I think that's everyone.
Okay. How much money does each oil and gas company invest in the alliance over the past 5 years?
I'd have to, in terms of the past 5 years, I'd have to take that on notice. But in terms of the whole GISERA program, it's been going for some time now, and it's about $54 million worth of investment to date. Majority of that comes from governments, whether they're federal or state governments, and a smaller proportion of that comes from companies. Okay.
I understand that the Research Alliance recently published the groundwater baseline study of the Canning Basin, which CSIRO undertook. Do they believe the involvement of oil and gas companies, particularly ones like Thea Energy, is a conflict of interest in developing scientific research on groundwater?
So if it's done through GISERA, so I just want to make sure we're talking about the same study, because there's also work that's been done under the Geological Bioregional Assessments Program as well, and that work is fully government funded.
No, I'm talking about the scientific framework that's been developed in relation to determining, and the baseline study for groundwater in the Canning Basin. So within this report, there's, Thea Energy are part of your actual development group of that framework. And I think I have a significant concern when we've got a fracking company like Thea Energy who will operate in the Edgar Ranges in the Kimberley, who will determine the cultural places, talk about the aquifers and the scientific research that formulates that in order for them to go in and frack country.
So, Senator, in terms of the research that gets done through GISERA, so the projects that are put forward, they're put forward by researchers and by community members and other relevant stakeholders, and there are regional advisory committees, so the governance structure is quite clear around how those projects are selected. And those advisory committees all have independent members on them who have the balance of the vote. So the selection of the projects, that's independent. The actual execution of the research is also done independently by CSIRO. So companies don't participate in the research. They get to see the outcomes of the research, but it's done independently with the right level of scientific rigour.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the independent research, I'm talking about the development of the framework. So the framework that actually governs the data collection and the task outputs and deliverables of that framework. In your progress report on this, you actually highlight the different areas of baseline characterisations of those, which continue to be an issue when we're talking about water resources in regional development, because they become open slather for energy and fracking companies like Their Energy. So they're sitting at the table developing all the scientific basis in which to do this, all the while crafting it along the way to be able to get access to it.
So, Senator, I can only talk about the work that gets done by CSIRO, and that's done to ensure that we do the right scientific rigour and approach to baselining and whatever research gets done.
Thank you for your answer. My only other set of questions are in relation to the Murujuga rock art and the report around has CSIRO done undertaken any independent assessments of the impact of the industrial emissions from industry on the Murujuga rock art?
Can you just say that name again for the rock art?
Murujuga, which is at the Burrup Peninsula
On the
in the
Burrup
Pilbara region.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. So there's some work being done on that some time ago. It would probably be around about 2015 or 16, I believe.
Okay. Can you provide any details in relation to the findings and recommendations of that work?
Oh, I'd have to take that on notice, Senator. It's something that I haven't looked at for a long time.
Okay. I note that there's the 2017 Senate inquiry which uncovered some evidence regarding the incorrect use of flawed studies on the impact of industrial emissions that actually are still up on the WA Government Department's website. Do you have any concerns with those?
So the work that was done at the time, it was peer reviewed. We've gone through a long exercise around that, around the quality of the work, and we're very comfortable with the position that we ended up in terms of what work was done to, I guess, understand the scientific rigour behind it. So that was done back then. We're quite comfortable for it to stay there.
Okay. Will there be any further work?
There hasn't been any activity in that space for a number of years, so at this point in time, I'm not aware of any intention to do any more work.
Okay. Given the changes of legislation in the WA state, particularly around protections of cultural heritage, but also the Juukan Gorge inquiry, the Way Forward report, I thought there might be. But that's it, Chair, for me.